And it looks like we're live on YouTube. So, hi everybody. We're on Judy right now. Hold on. I need turn my phone off and turn on. Hi. Okay. We are here because we're going to teach you guys how to do the, what are we doing today? We're doing one. We're doing the final Q4 book or Q4 box project for 2024, which is called the Quiltworx Leaf series. And I don't even know if we have a picture to show you.
We don't. I was just going to tell them, just look at your cover sheet. There's a good picture on the cover sheet.
All right, so I'm going to switch straight over to Judy, and let's see, I'm trying to think if there's anything we need to tell anybody. We've been so busy here because we've been working on getting the technique of the month out the door, and so we're a little bit like, I don't know, disorganized in that process. And but we're excited to finish this because this is the last one for 2024, and what I can't wait to do is to show you guys the stack of all the quilts. So we just sent the big one off to get quilted, and a lot of the little projects are going on the frame here shortly. So I think that we're all set. So Elizabeth Brim says, hi.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Also, I'm so excited to know that you're coming to join us at Santa Fe for Quiltworx University. So if any of the rest of you want to come join us, make sure to look on our website, look under events, and go down to QU Santa Fe, and you can find out more information. There's still like, I don't know, maybe 10 spots left, I think. Someone said they can't hear me. Says my mic is on. Can you hear Judy? All right, we need to do a quick sound check-in because my mic is on and it's...
Can you hear me? Any comments?
Anyone out there? Anyone check in with a sound check? Sound check. Mic. Let's see. I also need to open up the YouTube. Hold on. Let's make sure we don't have any technical difficulties here. Okay, Elise says she can hear Judy, but not me, but my mic is on.
Hello?
Let me turn it off and turn it back on. Okay, is that better? I just turned mine back on. Still can't get the project to load. You are a bit quiet, Judel. I can hear Judy very well. Okay, I turned my mic on or off and back on, so let's see if that worked. Is that better for Judel? On Elizabeth, we'll have to check your email after the class. I can send, let me make myself a quick note on that, and then we'll figure that out. Let's see. I'm trying to get to... Okay, Elise says that fixed it for my mic, so I just turned it off and turned it back on, so we should be good there.
And they can still hear me?
Yep, everyone can hear you. So,
okay.
And Sarah on YouTube says she can hear us both. So that's good. Okay, I think we're ready to start then. And Judy, we're on you, so go ahead and get started.
Okay. So today we are going to, I keep looking over at Judel, so if I look like I'm not paying attention to you, it's because I'm watching the video. All right, so today what we're going to do is go through this pattern. This is called One. And just a little bit of history about the leaf patterns is sometime back when this was published, that's not the right publication date, but anyway, we started just doing a whole bunch of leaf patterns, and they were mostly for decorative designs. And we were trying to set them up as a way to teach different techniques. And so mostly like some S-curves and some veins, putting on veins. And it was kind of right at the beginning of us doing paper piecing veins. So we were just trying out a lot of different fun techniques throughout all of our leaf projects. And if you're wondering why it's called one, it's because I was getting tired of trying to come up with different names, and so I have a 1, a 4, a 3, and they were just different combinations of leaves and how we approached them. Some of them were appliqued onto background fabric, which that's what we did with this one. Some of them were actually just finished leaves. And so they were just they were fun projects, and they made really nice decorative items, and they were easy to make. So, and some of them were very well designed. And this one is actually one of those that I'm going to say is well designed with all the way through with the template layout sheets. The only thing that I have found when I was working on it that we've actually updated in the last few years that we've been doing things is the process in which we use the veins, how we put the veins on. But this one is very similar to it. The only difference now is we actually have found that we could cut our template veins, cut a template actually for those veins rather than using the bias. But today we're going to go back and we're going to show you guys how we use the bias, because you can use bias when you're doing those veins if you don't have the templates. And one of the nice things about using the bias back then was we found that we could add, with a bias strip, we could add veins to a lot of individual elements to, like, if we were doing quilt blocks and we decided we wanted to put some veins on some of our circles, we could actually just put them on there with a piece of bias strip and add little accent strips into our blocks. And so they were a lot of fun to work with, and we didn't have to have patterns in order to add those types of accent strips. So keep that in mind, because if you're working on a quilt pattern and you just feel like you want some accent in there, the bias strips work really well for just coming up with that. So that's kind of what we're going to be working with a little bit today. So we're going to go over really quickly kind of some of the things that are in your patterns. And just to go through reading a pattern, for those of you that maybe this might be the first video you've ever watched, in general, all of our patterns, we have the first 2 or 3 pages is a lot of general information that's in one pattern versus the next pattern. And so once you understand some of that, you can skip right over it. But we're going to just quickly go over. The general information is normally just information about that particular pattern that's published. And it may talk about the fabric line, who designed it, and a little bit about the design element of the pattern. It always talks a little bit about newsprint and gives you a list of what the newsprint papers are supposed to be in your pattern. So always check that, because that's important. If you open up your pattern and your newsprint is and you're missing something, that's when you first want to contact us. So I think it's important, especially on occasion, some of you guys will open up a pattern 5-10 years after we've published it, and you'll look in there and something will be wrong. And it's really hard for us to go back and reprint those and find those. It's not a simple process. Sometimes it'll take one of my employees 2 to 3 hours to find something, and we're looking for something that might have been like, a $1 item versus 4 hours of labor trying to find something for an individual. So it's important that you guys actually, when you're buying patterns, is just kind of take a look to make sure everything is in there when you get the pattern, so that and then just slip it back in there if you're not going to work with it right away. So anyway, those things are important. And then the other thing is we always list the type of techniques that are in there. And this one didn't have a lot of techniques. It worked with floating points. So the way we set up the template layout sheets, the stacking process is really easy to follow, and so we're going to demonstrate that today for you. And then there's this was back when we were first starting to introduce curved paper piecing, and so that's what we're kind of going to focus on today, as well as the curved paper piecing, as well as we're going to focus on some applique. We're not going to really focus on the paper piecing on this one, but I'm just going to run you through a few things, because there's so much paper piecing on them and so many angles that we'll never get through it in the 3 hours. So we're going to kind of skip the paper piecing part of it, but we're going to go through some cutting, then we'll talk about the paper piecing, and then we'll move on to the applique process, okay? So then when you continue down through your general information, it really is information that you're going to find in all of our patterns, okay? And then on this particular pattern on page 2, there's actually a layout there of what the leaf is and the layout sheets that pair up with that leaf. And so once those papers are cut out, I just pair them together and I clip them together, and you'll see that in a minute. And that way I don't get the two, because once you get those foundation papers cut apart and stuff, it's really easy. It's hard to tell which pieces go with which. So you want to keep organized as we work through this, okay? On page 3, we have our fabric chart, and we talk about the different colors of fabric. And when I was reading through this last night, I was like, well, what's fabric C1? What's fabric C2? Because I didn't have my pictures with me, so there was really nothing for me to look at. And so in our newer patterns, we always have a color reference on that page, and this one didn't have it, but it is on the back page. So if you're looking for your color reference, it's on the back page. So what I like to do is actually find my swatches and figure out, well, what are my colors and what are they matching up to and what am I making? So if you bought one of the box ones, then you have your kits. And see how the swatches back here? I also put the swatches on this page as well. And the other place I put the swatches is I like to put swatches on my papers, especially if I know I'm not going to get to it right away, because then I'm not going to forget when I come back which pieces go where on there if I don't get them organized all the way. So it's really nice to be able to put those swatches on there. It's easy to come back and reference 6 months later, all right? So then we're going to actually look at, after you do your yardage table, then there's a diagram. And these diagrams for this particular pattern are really important, because those diagrams show you how to lay out your fabric. And I'm not going to lay out the fabric for you guys, so pay really close attention to the diagrams on page 3, because that shows you. And the reason why you have to be careful with how you lay it out is because you got to get those bias strips out of there. Instead of us adding an extra yard of fabric to everything, there was enough room to get those bias strips cut from that yardage right there, all right? So pay attention to how you put that on there. On your fabric, and cut that out and get those bias strips set on. So then if you turn to page 4, there's another fabric chart there that actually shows you on fabric 3, which is the vein on this leaf, and then the outside binding. So we picked one fabric for the outside binding and the vein, all right? And there again, those are type of things that, you might not want that on your binding, but that's what we chose, is to set that up that way. And then underneath that one are the instructions for fabric C4 and C5. Those are your instructions on how to make that. I call it a panel that we're going to do the applique on. And I'm going to grab it and show it to you. So this is what we're actually going to, we just sew this together, and then we're going to put the piece on there when we're ready to do the applique. Now, in your instructions, it tells you what size to cut these out. You actually, it's 3/8 of a yard. You can actually just cut that 3/8 of a yard and sew the two pieces together, and then come back and do a trim up on this later on if you want, or you can cut it out. Either way you choose to do that is fine. All right.
I also want to mention on that, some people, if you have the Hoffman kit, you have a directional fabric. So we gave you extra yardage for the directional fabric so that you could cut it length of fabric instead of width of fabric. The rest of them don't matter, but that one does
There was
matter.
Directional.
Yeah,
okay.
so they have more fabric in there. So make sure you're using the directional cutting instructions in your pattern, because I think it shows cutting options for both.
Okay, so then from there, then we just go into those general instructions. And basically what your general instructions are is the stitch length that you use for foundation paper piecing, and just really general stuff that people used to ask all the time about, well, how do you do this, how do you do that? So we just put this general instructions in there. And there again, it's in every one of our patterns. So once you get used to our pattern, most people just skip right over that information. So then we start with the actual stacking, and we get into the paper piecing. Now, this is something that I get asked a lot, because in our patterns, we go through all of the cutting information. And in that cutting information, we tell you to cut apart your template layout sheet, stack them, and put them in a bag, okay? And then when you get back over and you start doing all your paper piecing, you have to go through that bag, and you have to go through a sorting process and put everything in order. When I teach all of my students that come in to all of my classes, I normally tell them that once in the cutting process, you're best to just get everything cut out to the size of the layout sheet and then leave it, okay? Because all of these layout sheets are set up in order to where as you make the first cut, it's all in your stacking order. So if you cut it all out and then put it in a bag and then come back and start working on it, you'll have to go through that extra stacking process again to make sure everything's in order. If you just leave it like this and fold it up and put it in your bag until you're ready to start, you can actually cut it and stack it at the same time. And it will save you some time, and chances are you won't lose any of your pieces, okay?
I'm also going to interject here, because if you got a pre-cut kit from us, we actually cut things to the size of your cutting templates for the most part. And
oh,
then
that you pre-cut
the bias
these?
strips
Oh.
for them. We didn't cut the papers out, but we cut the pieces of fabric, and then we labeled it with which template it
Okay.
goes to.
All
So
right.
that was only on the pre-cut kits, but if you got one of those, you probably already have your bias strips done, and you have your stuff cut to the size that you'll need it for those templates.
Okay. All right. So then we're going to go, after we get through with all of the paper piecing, well, let's talk about the way the pattern's set up for the paper piecing, which is very normal for a lot of our smaller patterns. So we go through the paper piecing, and we do the first leaf in here. And then we come over, and rather than going through and giving you all of the verbiage again, all we did is we just set up some pictures of the paper piecing so that you have some visual reference as you get started. But in general, when we do paper piecing, we only put on the first 3 pieces. We're not going to make you write the instructions for every single piece that's on that, because you don't need all of those instructions. You just need to know how to get the first couple pieces started, and then the process is the same all the way through. So we have both of the stacking things there for you if you need to come back and reference, all right? And then where this pattern starts really getting into something that's different than anything else you've done is when you get back to page 8 and 9. And that's the process that we use for curved paper piecing. And then we do some S-curves, okay? And that's what I want to try to focus on mostly today. So I have all of my paper piecing done. So we're going to do a little bit of cutting demonstrations, and then we're going to jump right into the curved paper piecing in that part. And then I want to show you how I put it onto the fabric and get it prepared for my applique, okay? So that's basically going to be how we're going to be working on this. So there is going to be a jumping stage where I start here, and then I'm just going to leave it, and we're going to start at the end of that, where we're actually, after it's done, okay? So don't feel like you'll miss something in the middle of your video, all right? So let's get started. So we're going to start here. I pre-cut all of my templates, and I have my fabric underneath it, okay? And I just want to show you a few tricks. So you have your bags, and I like to basically put it in the bag just like this, fold it up until I'm actually ready to use it. So then when I come back, I know that everything I need for this piece is in this bag right here, all right? So when we're ready to start that one, then we're going to come over here, and we're going to do the same thing with this one. So it's going to go in a bag. And I'm not even going to work with this one today, so we're just going to set that aside. Okay, so now I have it all in my bag, and we're going to pull this out, and we're going to go through the cutting process and how to prepare all of this. So this particular template, I actually put a little bit of repositionable glue on it, and I have my fabric, but I want to show you something that you should think about when you're working with it. If you have a light table, you can actually take your template like this, and when you're putting this glue on, instead of just rubbing it all over, kind of look at the areas where your actual finished size, you can see the actual template areas. And what I try to do is avoid putting any repositionable glue on the actual pieces. And if I have my light table, I can do that, and I can just kind of get this, and now I don't have to pin all of these pieces onto a single area. So now when I put this on here and I start doing my cutting, I'm not going to have that glue on the finished product. It's only going to be on the parts that are going to get trimmed off and stuff like that, all right? So now I have this all attached, and I don't have to put paper clips on everything on this one because I don't have a whole bunch of layers there, all right? So then we're going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to flip my template over. And the other thing too is I'm working with black fabric, and the repositionable glue has a tendency to show up on that black fabric. And so a lot of times when I'm using black, I avoid the glue. On this one, I can actually put it on there because I can put it in get it in these areas on these cut lines where it's not going to actually end up on my final pieces, okay? So then I don't have to worry if there's little tiny pieces of that glue on there. Okay, so now we have that piece all set up. So that's what I wanted to show you with your light table. Okay, so now we're going to move the light table out of the way. And I'm going to go through the cutting. And so I think this demonstration, and when I was cutting these out the other day for the samples, I'm like, yeah, we need to focus, you know, when we set up our line work, we try to set it up. This one was just, it's just perfect the way that we set it up. So we're going to grab a ruler, and I thought I had my ruler. There it is, right there. We're going to set it up here. And I'm going to find the highest number. So this is my cut line 1. And this particular piece goes up. My highest cut line, it looks like, is cut line 14 on this one. Okay? And so let's go ahead and let's cut on. That's cut line 14. This is cut line 11. And this is cut line 15. Okay, so here's cut line 1. So we're going to place this on here. And so cut line 1. And then I'm just going to take and stack that, because that's the last piece. That's my highest section number. Okay, and now I'm going to come over here to cut line 2. And I'm going to go ahead and stack this. This one is actually 18. This one is 16. And then we're going to cut on this one. This is cut line 3. This is my 14. So I just look at these and I can tell, actually this one is not, this one isn't quite set up the way the others are. This one is 20, so I'm going to put that underneath there. But see how I'm doing my stacking as I'm going? This one is 12, so that one's going to go on top. This one is for my section 22, so this one's going to go on the bottom. This one is section 10. So this one is, it goes on the top. This one is section 24. So that one's going on the bottom. Just like that. This one is section 8. So that one goes on the top. And this one is section 26. So that one slips underneath there. So it's important to kind of pay attention as you're cutting these out as to how the stacking's going, because it's going to make it a lot easier to keep this in organized. That's my 28. And then we're going to come over here to line 12, which is this one, and that's a scrap. And then we're going to go to line 13, and line 13, so this one we're going to put a paper clip on it because it doesn't have any repositionable glue, but there's my sew side. And then we're going to go to line 14. And line 14 is section 4. And we're going to put a paper clip on that one. So that's going to go right there like that. And then this is my section 6. So this one, to get all of those to fit on there, we had to basically change the cutting order on this. Okay, so now let's just take this and we're going to move it over here like that, and let's go to this piece right here. So this is my cut line 1. Okay, and then we're going to come over here and we're going to find cut line 2, which is right here. So cut line 2, that's section 27. This is cut line 3, and that's section 25. And notice how I'm setting all of my sew sides together. This one is section 23. This one is section 21. This one is 19. So when we design these layout sheets, Bradley tries to get those layout sheets set up to where when you cut on lines, the line, you can actually do all of your stacking at that time. And that's why I like to tell people, just wait until you're ready to start paper piecing and then do your final cutting. And this is 13 right here. Now we're going to come over here, and this one is my next cut line. This is cut line 13. Actually, no, I want to start with 9 because I was just, there we go. There's 9, so that's one goes right here. This is cut line. There we go. And then we're going to go cut line 11. And that one puts, so basically as my cut lines go up, my numbers are going down. My stacking. There we go. Oops, wrong sew side. There we go. And this is my section 1, which doesn't have a sew side. Okay, so now I have my dark side and the light side here. So we're going to combine these now. So we're going to find, this is section 28, and this one's section 27. So we have this in order and this in order. So I'm just going to take the whole stack, and I'm going to flip it. And we're going to take this stack, and we're going to flip it. And so this one is section 28. And this one is section 27. And then this one is section 26. And this is 25. This one is 24 and 23. And we're just going to keep putting them and get everything stacked up into the sewing order. Oops. 2 pieces there. There we go. 19, 18, 17, 16, 15, 14, 15. So something else I see happen quite a bit with beginners is once they cut it out, they remove the templates. Don't ever remove the template, because you need that template, because it tells you that template matches the section that it goes to on the foundation paper. And if you removed all those templates, you would not know what piece goes where with this, because we're not working with just a chunk of fabric. We're actually working with a template, and that sew side tells me exactly where to set that template at. So once I get this done, if I'm ready to start, I'm all ready to just start sewing here. If I'm going to put it away, I can actually take and put a binder clip on the whole thing and put it away. So let's go ahead and put the first piece on, just to give you an idea how to get started. There's a couple other little tricks I want to show you. So here's my very first section. And it's kind of weird. This is a funny shape, and I have to figure out how that fits. If I grab my light table, this section right here where my dashed lines are fits right around the outside edge there. So I actually can just take that and basically put it on the light table, and I know exactly how that piece is going to fit underneath there. All right. So if I don't have a light table, I can actually take this and I can fold it just like this, and then I can see, okay, that line fits right in there just like that. All right. So that's the way that piece is going to fit on there. So I'm going to take and put some glue on the back of that. And I have a choice. I can use repositionable glue, or I can actually use the Yoo-hoo glue. I'm going to put some repositionable glue on it. And then we're going to place it just like that. All right, so I have my first piece underneath there. And now we're going to find the section 2 piece, which is this one. And there's my sew side. So let's find our fold template and our add a quarter ruler. And I'm going to place my fold template right on line 1. And I'm going to fold this back. Okay. Can you see how all of this stuff here, it's going to be annoying to try to get these little tiny pieces started. Once we get 3 or 4 pieces sewn on there, then it's easier to handle. So I'm going to show you guys one of the tricks that I do here is we like to just take this paper and we just basically kind of roll it up just a little bit like this. And then I put a paper clip on it. So now it's easier for me to handle, and I don't have to worry about bumping it and everything moving underneath there. And now I can just fold this back. I can put my add a quarter ruler on there. And I take my template. I like to actually take the templates and put them back on my board and kind of stack them. Because that way if I make a mistake, I have the template and it's all right in order for me to go find where that section went. So this is my sew side. The sew side on your paper always lines up with the trimmed edge, okay? So we're going to pull the paper clip off here, and I just take the sew side and we're going to leave it like that so that if something interrupts me, I can still see how that's supposed to fit. And when I'm looking at this, I can see I have about a ½ inch here and about 3/4 of an inch on, actually that's probably more like 3/4 and a half on this side. So when I put this piece on there, I want to make sure that that covers, all right? So I'm going to stop for just a second and show you another trick, because you're working with some really weird angles, and to make sure that you have these on there. So there's a couple of tricks. One of the tricks that a lot of my CIs like is they actually like to come in here and trace those dashed lines. When they fold this back, they can actually see whether or not they have fabric around the outside of their boundaries. So I have my papers here and I can see the marks on the dash line here, and I know that I have fabric here and fabric on that side, so it's on there and ready to go. So because of the angle, we are definitely going to use glue along this edge, the sew side. So I'm going to put my glue underneath there like that. Now when I go to lift this up and go to my machine, I don't have to worry about those angles changing on me. So we're going to just sew the first piece, and then we're going to quit and move on. There we go. And you'll want to adjust your stitch length to make sure it's a little bit tighter. Okay, you don't want it so tight that it cuts the paper, but it needs to be tight enough that it'll actually be easy to remove, and you don't want to be able to fold this back and see where those stitches are. So there we go, we have our first 2 pieces on there, and you're like, well, how do I know it's going to cover? All right, well, flip it over. And if you have a light table, it's really easy to see whether everything's going to cover when you're working with these angles, okay? But if you don't have a light table, just flip it over and just follow your lines to see. Now where I have all this excess here, a lot of times I like to just come in here and keep this somewhat cleaned up as I'm going when I'm working with stuff that has a funny angle with it, because then I don't get confused as to where to set it. All right. Okay, so that's going to be the end of the paper piecing demo. So let's go ahead and we're going to put this piece back inside my bag. And I'm going to take all of these pieces, they're all in order, and I'm just going to get those scooted together like that. And then I'm going to take and put a binder clip on there so that it's all ready for me to just pull it out of my bag and start sewing again. And I'm actually going to take this and move that paper clip like that so it'll set in my bag. Okay. And we'll take these little pieces right here and we'll just slip those inside the bag as well in case something gets lost. All right, so when you're done, you're going to have a piece that looks just like that. Okay, notice that we have a lot of spaces between the lines. So when we designed this quilt or this leaf, we actually we didn't want a lot of spikes down here, so we spread these out. All right, so basically what these are supposed to be is just veins in your leaf. And I really like the way the final look on that is. Okay, so notice that I've already removed the foundation paper on this one, okay? On this one, I still have all my foundation paper. We have all of this stuff on here. And we're going to go to our instructions. And this is the one with the vein. And so we're going to turn to page 8 is where we're going to start for the rest of the video. Okay. So the very first thing it tells me is that I can actually come in and trim off the excess on this. Okay. I don't have to, but it gets rid of a lot of that excess fabric, so why mess with it? Okay, so we're going to actually take this and I'm just going to do a quick trim. I'm not going to trim it perfect right on the line, but I'm going to clean off all of that excess along there. Okay, and it just makes it easier to handle as I'm going. All right, I'm also going to do it on this side. Now my instructions don't tell me to do it on that side, but I'm going to here in just a little bit. Okay, what my instructions tell me is to actually bring all this paper and fold this back. And this is an older technique that we used, and we folded this back and then we trimmed right along that line. And that's how we get all that excess out of there. We've learned that we can really just come in here and just clean this off out here for now. We don't have to fold that paper back. And we're just going to get rid of all of that. Just like that. Okay, so now we have this piece that looks more like what we want to work with. And so then you're going to go, and before we were trimmed that, it actually told us to do this basting line, to sew the basting line. And I sewed it with white thread, so it's going to be hard to see, but if you look at the paper back here, there's a line here and it says basting lines 26, and you're actually going to stitch that all the way. Okay, and what the basting line is telling us is that gives us our 1/4 inch, because when you're working with straight edge, you use to add a 1/4, and that gives you your cut 1/4 inch seam allowance. When you're working with a curve, you don't have any way to know what that is. And so what we realized is we could actually print a basting line on here, and then we can come in there and sew it. And now I know exactly where my 1/4 inch is, and I can work with it, and I can put that vein on it. Okay, so I already sewed that line. You guys will sew it. And then we're going to grab our bias strip right here. Okay, and we're going to actually pin this, and we're going to look at our picture, and basically we're going to take this and we're going to roll it around all the way on that paper, and this is called curved paper piecing. All right, and what we want to do is come back, because there's some marks on here that you need to pay attention to, and one of them is really important, and that's what's called a transition point. And that transition point is where two curves join. So this is one curve here, and this is another curve, okay? With an S curve, when we do traditional piecing, we're always just going around the outside of a piece, okay? If I was actually doing traditional piecing, I would have a piece here, and this would sew onto it, all right? But because we're working on paper, we have to be able to get this vein to come in here and come all the way around like that. So what we have to do is we have to figure out somewhere where this is going to fit. So I'm just going to kind of pre-measure it. If I actually had a template piece that I was working with, I would have that point marked on the template, and I would just match it up. But I'm working with bias, and so I have to lay this down on here and get to that, where that transition point. I'm not going to try to work this up yet. So let's find that transition point, which is right here. And I know that I'm covering up here, so now I'm going to put a pin right there at that transition mark, which is right there. Okay, so now I know that I've got this split properly, and it's going to fit on my piece. So now I'm just going to grab my glue pin here, and we're going to run this glue right along that edge. And I'm running it just on the inside of the basting line, so it fits right inside the seam allowance. I don't want a big wide piece. I just want it to set in the seam allowance. And as I glue, I'm going to just match that up. I'm going to do it just a little bit more. And push that glue down into the fabric so that you know that it's not going to come loose. Okay. Okay, so now I have that edge there. Now I'm going to flip it over and sew, but my bias strip is a pretty wide bias strip on this because we had to have a wider piece here and then it gets skinny there. So we just cut it wider so that it would fit these other pieces, areas. So what I want to do is when I lay this on there and start sewing, I'm going to sew on the paper side. Okay, now my instructions tell me to sew on this side and follow the basting line, okay, with a 1/4 inch foot. And that works just fine. But I'm also going to, today I'm going to show you what we found that is really accurate, much more accurate than coming in here with a 1/4 inch line. We're actually going to sew on the back side of this, okay? So I'm going to put a few pins down here to make sure that this doesn't move on me. Just down there like that. And you don't want to have it up close. You want to have this down quite a ways on there because you want the feed dogs, if you get that pin up there too close, you're going to have issues with that puckering, because normally I don't even put any pins in it, but I'm going to actually pin this just to kind of so you guys can see what we're doing. All right, so now I'm going to flip this over and I'm going to sew right on line 29 all the way until we get to that transition point, and then we stop. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to get that going right here. And it's just sewing on that line is so accurate. And notice how I'm lifting the paper, okay? And as I get going, I'm going to pull those pins out and hold the paper between that and let the fabric underneath it, because your feed dogs are trained to work that bias through there, and you don't want to put any pressure against the bias to where the feed dogs can't work. So I'm just going to hold that paper up. And as I get a little bit further, then I'm going to pull the next pin out. And then we're going to take and going to pull the next pin out. And then when we get down there to where that transition mark point is, we're going to stop. Okay? All right. So the reason I like to do a half seam there is because on this one I have to start working this in more to where it's twisting on me just a little bit like this. All right? And in order to make that happen, I end up having to put pressure and pull on this, and so this just helps me be able to keep this, and I don't have to worry about this pulling on me. All right, so we're going to take our glue, and you got to be a little bit careful not to do a lot of stretching on this when you're pulling this together. So we're going to just glue a little bit, and then you hold it up and you just work that edge of the bias right along that piece, okay? And it starts kind of, this starts kind of standing up for you just a little bit. And then we're going to take this and we're just going to keep going. And you're going to have to push that glue in there. So one of the things I like to do is as I'm going, I'll find these little tiny pins and I'll flip it over a couple times, and we'll just take those pins and put them right into the seam allowance area. Don't put it this way. You want to put it right into the seam allowance on that S-curve, and what that'll do is it keeps popping up as we keep working our way around that edge there. And then we're just going to bring this. Okay. And then I'm going to grab another little pin. Now, when you're looking at the little pictures in your pattern, it's really hard to explain what I'm doing here, so there's just kind of pictures showing it all glued together there for you. Okay, but see how this is starting to want to stand up there? And then we're going to flip it over and we're going to put another pin in there. And then just about to the end. I didn't leave myself a whole lot of room here, but it's going to be plenty. All right. So then we're going to take this, put a pin in here, and a pin in here. Okay, so now what I want you to do is I have some of my pins going this way and the heads are going on this side. I'm going to start sewing right here at this end like this. And so because I'm doing that, I don't want these pins where I have to pull them back. So I'm going to make sure that all of the heads of my pin are where I can pull them out. So we're just going to twist these around like this. And there we go. So now we're going to start right at this end, and we're going to sew back, and at that transition point we're going to sew over there about a 1/2 inch and do a 1/2 inch overlap. So let's get this started. We're going to pull the first pin out because I got that glued and it's ready to go, and we're going to start right on that point. There we go. Did I break my thread? Yep. Broke my thread. So you guys get to watch me rethread my machine.
That's the joys of
of
a live production. So while she's doing that, some people have asked about the quilt on the wall. So I forgot to mention that at the start of the video, but it's called Driftwood Beach, and it's a brand new publication. Patterns are listed on the website now, and we do have kits for it. I just haven't gotten them listed on Quiltster Marketplace yet, so watch for that. Someone asked if their box coupons would work for that. Yes, your box coupons work for anything. New, old, whatever. You can use box coupons on one kit for Quiltworx on the Quiltster Marketplace and on one pattern on the Quiltworx website per quarter. Also, don't forget that a lot of our shops have also put the same thing, or put coupons in, and their coupons work as well. And they probably, some of them have those kits also, so you should definitely check out their websites too, because their coupons combined with our coupons make those get to know us booklets incredibly valuable, and also pretty much pay for your boxes. So you get discounts on all of those products all throughout the year from us and them. So
okay, all right, so we're going to start sewing, and I'm going to pull the pins down as I go, and I'm sewing on my line. And I kind of have to push. It's kind of like it's like the inside of a canoe almost, that you have to, that folds up like that with the paper. But this works really, really good. And I just want to check as I sew to make sure that I don't have a pucker, because now it's not the same as when you're doing an outside curve, because I'm actually doing an inside curve. So I got to make sure that that fabric's not pulling in and I'm sewing a pucker into it underneath there. And it's just a short distance. Still looking really good. All right, we're almost to the inside. Okay, so I did about a 1/2 inch overlap there. And there we go. So now we're working with a bias where I do want to explain the difference, that if I had actually cut a template, at this point it would just lay down perfect, okay? When you're working with a bias strip, you have to work that a little bit, because this is going to have to be stretched down a little bit, and we're going to shrink this in with the iron just a little bit, okay? But notice how, because this is so wide, it's not wanting to actually press down very well. So what we're going to do is go hit it with the iron, and we're going to do some ironing and get that to lay down just a little bit. I'll just iron and then I'll show them.
You can't see the ironing board.
Yeah.
She'll just show you after she irons. So we use the video, or we use the iron camera on a different angle this time. So. I think you've probably all heard me say we need more cameras like 5 times now, and we still haven't ordered them.
So okay,
that's gonna get done.
So I have this, and it's still not wanting to lay down very well, but I have a lot of excess there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna actually just take a little bit of my glue here, not much, and I'm gonna put just a little bit on the back side of that, and there we go. So now we can get that. Now we're going to flip it over, and we're going to take this, and I'm just going to do a really quick cut along that outside. And what you'll find is all of a sudden it'll start laying down. So it's having that wide, all that excess, but see how it's just laying down now for me? And I haven't done anything but just trim off the excess. But look at how nice it's laying down now, okay? So I don't have a steam iron with me, but I'd actually take that and actually do a little bit of steam on there. And the nice thing is the steam will come in and it'll shrink that bias down, and it'll lay down perfectly flat for you. So now that I have this so that I can manage it, I'm going to actually flip it over, and we're going to trim right on the paper now and do a perfect trim to finish this up, okay? And then I'm going to show you how I clean out all of that excess underneath there to get all of this extra paper. So I'm going to find my leaf ruler, which is actually, I'm not... I think the one I want is, I'm going to use the curved diamond ruler, okay? So let's go ahead and we're going to trim the end there. And then we're going to take our ruler, and we're just going to roll it right along that curved line. And then when we get up here, we're going to flip it over. All right, so that's one edge. I'll change rotary cutters. I should have put a new blade on before I started. Okay, so now we're going to trim off this end. Ah, much better. And then we're going to come in here. And you probably have to put a little bit of pressure on that because you're going through a couple, quite a few seams on there. There we go. All right, so now we have a perfect fit. Okay, and now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to fold back this bane right here, and we're going to clean off all of this excess underneath here. Okay, so I'm going to come in here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut that basting stitch off. So if I cut just to the inside of the basting stitch on here, it leaves me with a scant 1/4 of an inch, and it's just a nice clean cut that I'm doing along there. I'm not going to use a ruler. I have to do this freehand. You can actually do this with scissors as well if you need to, if you have a hard time doing freehand. I'm not sure. I think this one is a sharper blade here. Okay, so see how I cut all of that stuff out of there? So now when I look at it from the back side, I have this nice seam allowance right there. And it's very accurate. And now these two pieces are going to be sewn together. So if I flip them over like that, that's how they fit. And we're going to do what's called an S-curve. And an S-curve is done the same way as what I just did on the paper, except that this is going to be a little bit easier because I'm going to remove the paper as I go. Okay, so let's flip it over. And we're going to come back and we're going to find that transition mark, which I cut it off, which I forgot to tell you. So I'm going to find that little piece right here that I trimmed off. When we first started this, we should have been marking those transition lines down, and we marked them on the outside. So you guys need to come in here and mark this. Just put a TRP line as if you had a TRP line. This is before we used to do TRP lines, so we just marked that. So now I know where my transition is on this, okay? All right, so don't forget to mark where that transition line is, and just do yourself a TRP line. You don't even have to sew it, just to where you know where it's at. So we're going to sew this part of the curve first, all right? And this piece goes on here like that. And we didn't, when we moved the paper, I didn't tell the girls to mark that on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start here, and we're going to come back and work to that part. But this piece has a transition. Just a second. I have one right here. I'll use this. Now you know why we use TRP lines now. So let's take this leaf here, and we're going to flip it over like this, and we're going to find where that transition point is, which is right here, okay? So now you know that you need to know where that transition line is, and it is right here, because once I know that, I don't have to play a guessing game as to where those pieces are going to match up. So let's just put a pin in there. Okay. And so here's the other one. So now I know exactly where I need to match those. And I'm right on right there. Okay. So something else I want to show you is when I fold these seams back, I have this dog ear here. Okay. I can get rid of a lot of bulk in that seam if I actually come in and I trim those little pieces off. So I'm just folding back the seam, and then I'm trimming those dog ears And I'm going to do it until, okay, so I won't have any more. So see how I trimmed along the inside? That also makes it easier to get this to glue down for you. Okay, so we're going to start at this point, and we're going to take this and we're going to match up right at that end. So get that smart corner, and it matches up perfectly right along that end there. Okay, and then we're going to work this all the way back. Because we don't have TRP lines on this leaf like some of our newer products that we have, then we have to make sure we don't stretch that. Where if I had TRP lines, I'd just mark the pen at those points, and I wouldn't have to worry about stretching as I'm gluing them on. So we're just going to take this, and it looks like it's going on there pretty good for me. I love glue when we're doing something like this because it's easy to pull up if I need to pull it up, and it holds it right in place. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a few pins, and I'm going to actually pin these down along this edge here in a few spots so that I don't have to worry about that glue coming off. Popping off. Okay, so I'm going to just sew a 1/4 of an inch around this piece, and then what we're going to do is remove the paper. And where my smart corner is, there's a point on there. I want to hit that when I sew that off. I want to hit it right on that point. Okay, so now we're going to remove the paper, because we have to get rid of the paper in order to do the rest of it. So I'm going to grab my garbage can here, and we're going to drop all the paper right in the garbage while we're doing this.
This is everybody's favorite part.
I know. People go to sleep at night thinking, oh, I can't wait till I can get up and pull paper in the morning.
So Judy used to pay my kids when they were little 25 cents for each paper that they removed. And my middle son, Cadrian, who's now 20, one time he said to her, you know, Grandma, 25% or 25 cents is really cool and everything, but it would be way cooler if you would just pay us in brownies. So we would have a paper removing day and just make a batch of brownies, and everyone was happy. So just in case you need to know what kind of bribery people might need, check for or consider brownies, because it might work. Someone said, the only additional thing to this class that I need is for Judy to mess up so I know how to fix my own boo-boos. Well, you know what?
Hey, we're in a good mood today. We're not messing up. We've had enough of that this last couple weeks.
Also, go ahead and do the Pocket Full of Posies quilt in that series. If you want to see how we fix mistake after mistake after mistake, she had a live masterclass on fixing mistakes, clear down to applique put on backwards, and I don't know.
We like to do everything at least twice around here. I always say read first, sew once, but that's not the way I live. I always sew it and then I go back and crap, what did I just do?
You know, someone said I would have to make my own brownies first. Yeah, you would have to, but maybe making brownies is like your own incentive also. Like, I can sometimes be bribed by brownies just by myself. But yeah, brownies are, they're good payment at times for sure. Yeah, Elizabeth says, yeah, plus, she says, it made me feel so much better about my mistakes when she watched you make mistakes.
I know, everybody's like, oh, look, Judy made a mistake, yay.
I have a quilt at my house that will never be sold because it's one with a lone star.
It was the perfect quilt.
Yeah, and she sewed one of the lone star blocks in backwards, and we thought, anyway, we didn't notice it until after it was all quilted and she was putting a binding on it and driving to Quilt Market. And it was out of our very first fabric collection, and we had this huge, like, we showed it off at Premier Quilt, at the Premier Schoolhouse in front of, thousands of people. And one of the diamond blocks was sewn in backwards. And then, even more, I don't know if a lot of you remember back when Keepsake Quilting did magazines, but Keepsake Quilting wanted to pick it up and do kits on it.
And I said no.
Because she didn't want it photographed with block in there incorrectly.
And Joe says, oh, we'll just put a table on that part of it.
Yeah, we'll just make sure people can't see it. And when the catalog came out, the only thing you could see, the only corner of the quilt you could see in the picture was the one with the block sewn in backwards. So anyway.
And life goes on. All right. So now we're going to flip it over and we're going to match the rest of this up.
Someone said, my son has no kids, no one to bribe to pull papers. Maybe I should offer free babysitting to the neighbor kids.
Okay, so we're going to match the end point there with those smart corners, get that matched up. And you might have to put a little bit of extra glue on there to get that to stay, because you don't want that to slip off. And then you're going to work your way back around from the tiny little end here all the way And once I get that going, all right, now I'm going to flip it over, and now I have my curve on the top. But getting the really thin part, you'll probably have to do it from the other direction. Okay, so now I can just pull this back, and because I have that bias there and I didn't have my steam iron today, I'm just going to take that, but watch my fingers. I just kind of pull it in like this, and it just kind of pulls that back so that I don't end up with a whole bunch of excess right in here. Just keep pulling that back like that, and it'll work that all in for you with that glue.
Someone said, Mom, it's good to know that Judy is a human and not a god.
Yeah, that's for sure. I have a lot of human characters. All right, so I have that all glued on there, and I'm just going to push that down a little bit more. This is where a steam iron really comes in nice, is because I can take that and hit that with a steam, and it'll just shrink all of that bias right down in, and it'll almost lay flat for you as you sew, all right? And I should have thought about that and brought that iron in, but I didn't. Okay, so I'm going to sew this last edge here. Okay, as you get towards the end, you may find you have to fold that seam back, the seam allowance back, and your pressure foot will work better along that bias edge. So now that it's laying on top, I'm just going to fold it back out of the way. All right, and look at that nice little vein that goes through there. That looks awesome. Okay, so I'm going to press this really quick, and then I'm going to show you how to do the bias, how I finish this off, which I thought was really cool the way it worked when we were making it, designing it. All right, I'm going to actually find my starch pan, and let's go ahead and fill it up. I think it's empty. Yep. That one's empty. All right, so starch is not wanting to I have to change because this is my travel starch, and I had tape over the end of it so it wouldn't leak. All right. And for those of you that might be new to this, this is an acorn starch pen, and I use it on all of my curves. And I just run it right along those seams, and it just, when I come back and press that, it just lays down so nice. There's very few things that I find in my life that I love, and this is one of them that I just, when I saw it and the way it works, okay. All right, so as I get this pressed open, I notice that I didn't get out as far enough on my point there. So I'm going to just go in and do a little bit more of a seam right there to finish that up. Get that point to come out. Now I could have just clipped it too, but I'm going to just show you how I would come in and fix it. So I'm just going to come out. And what happened is the machine just kind of slipped right at the end, which is very common, the sewing. Now when I open it up, it fits perfectly along there. Okay. All right, so let's get the veins. So you have two veins that you were supposed to make. And the way we set this up is the black goes on this side and the white one we're going to match up here. Now, I've seen a lot of people change that and put the contrasting, which that doesn't make any difference at all. So you do what you guys want to do with it. If you switch it around, that's fine. So in order to get the bias, the two we had to do a strip in here. So you can press that open and it'll take the bulk out of it. And I actually put glue on it. Now I'm going to unglue it and press it open, because it will lay down better for me with it pressed open. All right. So we're going to take this and we're just going to sew the bias all the way along that edge. And I'm not even really going to glue it down or anything. I'm just going to start sewing on it, because we're going to take that and flip it over when we're all done. Okay? So we're going to start on the inside, and we're just going to sew a 1/4 inch line, seam there. Okay, now I could have glued it. It's gonna go on just fine without the glue, but if you guys want to put glue on it, by all means you can glue this on. But it actually sews on really nice along that edge. And even if you stretch this a little bit, it's not going to make a difference. It's actually isn't going to hurt it at all to have it stretch just a little tiny bit. The other thing is, if it's not a perfect 1/4 inch seam allowance, it's going to be fine. All right, right to the end. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut off this at the end here, and we're going to press this. All right, I'm going to get rid of that little dog ear there, and I'm just going to do a quick press on that. Okay, now we're going to take our fabric glue pen here, and we're going to fold back the binding, and we're going to glue that on the back side. I'm going to get rid of some threads right here. Okay. And I'm just going to fold this back right along that edge there. Now, if you want, you can use Roxanne's basting glue. I just find this glue pen is fast and it's easy to get that. It's easier to work with. I don't have to have an iron to get that to roll over. All right, so we have a nice clean finish there, and I'm going to hit that with an iron. I always say hit it with an iron, and I don't know why, where that ever came from. All right, so look at that nice finish there. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to cut this one right at that point. And then we're going to take this one. I'm going to grab my ruler. Just kind of get that so the curve continues. There we go. All right. And now we're going to do the same thing on this other side. So on this one, we have to make sure we leave enough that we can do a fold back on that point. Okay, so we're gonna, and then the tail is the stem. And so we're gonna figure out about where we wanna be with. Okay, so we're gonna start down here and I'm gonna start sewing. I'm actually gonna sew 1/4 of an inch down there along the bottom as well on the stem. I'm going to put some pins in this one. Might make it go a little bit faster for me. And right up there at the top, I'm actually going to put a little bit of glue just because I don't want that piece to come undone there. And I'm going to put a little more glue underneath it. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to start sewing down here. And the reason why is because it gives me a line there to work with when I fold back my stem. So we're going to start down here at the bottom. Okay, so let's pull all those pins out. I'm going to go press this. And I'm going to press right along where I sewed that seam on the stem at the bottom, and I'll show you that as soon as I bring that back.
If you want to maybe put it in front of the camera or the little camera that's on the machine, they might be able to see that really well close.
Okay, I'll do that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay, so see how I sewed this seam right there? I just stitched that because now I know exactly where to fold that back now. All right, and so that'll make it easier when I come in here to fold this in because I'll match that up and then it will get folded over like that. Okay. And then I will come back with some black thread and finish that off when I do the actual applique, all right? Okay, so now we're going to glue this back. And I'm not going to worry about folding back that stem yet. right, so I got both, and now what I have to do is come up here, and we have to get this folded back down underneath the way it's supposed to go, and this one folded. Okay, so these we have laying flat, and we didn't fold them under, but in order to finish this off, we have to fold under this last little tiny bit here. So we're just going to take this, and I'm going to snip this on the back right here, and now I can take this and fold it under as if I was going to actually do a finished binding back there. Okay, I'm going to move this over to my little light, or the little camera. Do you see what I did? I just snipped it here, and now I'm just folding that under as if I was actually going to do, fold it just like you would on the back to actually do a binding. And then these pieces, this is just going to come in here, and I'm going to fold that up and glue that as I go. And then you guys will have to judge just how long you want that stem to be. I think I'm more than happy with it now, the way it is. And so I'm just going to take and cut it at that length. In fact, that's even in my book too long. I'm going to go a little bit shorter there, okay? And I'm not going to worry about finishing that off right now. I'm going to focus on that when I actually get ready to do that, when I applique it, okay? So now we're going to do the same thing up here. We're going to come back here, and we're going to just slice this just a little bit. Right in here. And then I got to take this piece, and I have to roll this back like that. Okay, so I'm just going to finish up and roll that angle back there. I'm going to put some glue on it. And get that to roll back, press that down like that. And then we're going to take this and fold it back right along that line, and then we have to fold this one over. So what your goal is to get this folded back at an angle on there. Okay, so, and you're going to have to work with this just a little bit. I need to get this, it looks like, folded back a little bit more like this, and then tuck this in. So there's a picture in your pattern, and it kind of goes at an angle, and that's basically what I want, almost a 90-degree angle in there, and then that's going to come across like that. Okay, and I'm not going to focus too much on it, because I can come back when I'm ready to actually do the applique and get that to lay down perfect the way I want it to lay down. But that's a start. At least I know where I want to get rid of the extra bulk of fabric at this point, and then I can work with that afterwards. So I'm going to get rid of a little bit more there. And then we'll put some glue to kind of hold it in place. And then this is going to fold down, and there we go. That looks really, really good. Okay. Need to get it a little bit more of an angle.
I don't know if this helps or not, but it's kind of like folding the tip of a paper airplane.
Yeah.
Where you fold it down flat first and then you fold it over to get the perfect point.
And I have it. I just have to get some stuff trimmed out. So I'll show you what it looks like here. All right. So that's what it's going to look like. Can you see it?
Mm-hmm.
Can I? What about there? Is that better?
Yeah, if you put it so that, it just, you can see it. It's a little blurry. When
so you just have to work that, and don't worry about the back because that's going to be sewn down. So you don't have to try to hide things. You just want to make sure that the top gives you the finish that you're looking for. All right. So I have that somewhat glued there, and I think I'm going to put a little bit more glue on it right there to get that to lay down. Okay, so now we're ready to add this onto our other piece. So let's go grab and we're going to lay this piece on here like that. And we're going to decide. Okay, so we want the black to be against the white and the white to be against the black. And then I'm just going to, and however I decide to put it on there is kind of, it doesn't really matter. I can twist this more like this if I want. And I kind of like it more this way, so I'm going to go like this. And then have that stem come in here, basically, kind of like this. And in the picture, the stem is actually folded back like that. You guys do whatever you want with that stem, get whatever shape you want with it, right? And I'm just going to put one little pin in there just to kind of hold that in place. And make sure that you have it where you want. I want to go up a little bit further with it. There we go. And once you get it where you think you want it, then we're going to take and we're going to put a few pins down through the center of it. And I don't like to leave the pins in there when I do applique because I catch my hands on it. So once I get it where I want, then I'm going to use my Roxanne's basting glue and glue it in position. Isn't that fun? It's actually pretty cool looking if you like black and white.
You have lots of very pretties. Perfect, pretty. This is so beautiful.
Yeah. So, and they're fun to make. And, you can do this in a day. They are fun to make.
And for those of you who don't know the fabric line she's using, I kind of forgot to mention that at the start. We picked the Color Stock collection, which is a cotton collection that
by us
and I designed for Timeless Treasures. And what's really cool about it is it's a basics line. So these colors and fabrics will be around for quite a bit. And those two pieces we used, the big prints, those are also available in wide back. So if anybody wants, actually all three of those prints, the colorful one, the multicolored one that we used for the stem is also available as a wide back option as well. So if you're making color stock, you should definitely look into it. And even though this one just has the blacks and whites, the collection has 48 rainbow fabrics in
that go
both
with it.
Solids and a couple prints so far, and more is coming, and they will be in a wide range of color gradations. So anyway, if you're making a quilt and you want something that moves from one step to the next in kind of almost an ombre look without buying an ombre fabric, Colorstock's a great choice. So check it out.
Yeah, and the other thing that's cool about it is this is actually all of the designs in here are actually from our Carnival Flower Technique of the Month 2 years ago. So all of these flowers are chunks and pieces from Carnival Flower.
Right. We actually deconstructed the quilt and in Quiltster into lots of different combinations of blocks, and then I just colored it with a black. And then we took all the shapes that we had and we layered them in there, and we shaded them in different shades of all of the blacks, whites, and grays, or all of the colors that we actually used in all of the other prints. So everything coordinates, which is just really, I don't know, I love the collection. I'm really proud of what we did, and I hope that people use it for more than just Quiltworx projects, because there's so many just great applications. So
okay, so did you guys see me doing all of that glue on the back? So now I'm just going to take that and lay it down and get that glued. So I put glue basically on the back of each one of the black spikes there, and then I put it right along that basting, that edge there. All right. And then I'm going to go hit it with hit it with an iron again. So I'm going to put my iron on there and heat that glue up just a little bit. All right, so I have that side down. Now I'm going to come over here and we're going to get this side put down. The reason I'm putting it down further on those spikes is because I don't want it to move underneath there and shift on me as I'm doing my applique. So that's just... All right, so then we're going to take that. All right, and then I'm going to come out down here to my stem, and I'm going to get this glued in place so it has a chance to dry. Okay, and honestly, I don't worry too much about the end on it, because I usually just do like a little satin stitch over the raw edges there, so I don't worry about trying to fold it inside. And that's what I'm going to do on this one too. I'm just going to do a little satin stitch along the bottom. Okay, so we're going to iron that down to get that glued down. I want to put a little bit of more glue up here on that tip to kind of hold that in place. There we go. Now I'm heat setting this glue from the back as well as the top so that it's on there now. I don't have to worry about it moving at all. Okay, so I'm gonna leave the pins in the middle here for now, and we're gonna get the machine set up and for applique. And I am gonna use some Wonder Fill, and I'm gonna do this in white, and I'm gonna do this in black. And actually, because I'm working with a heavy cotton, I think I'm gonna use this right here. This is a pretty lightweight, so you know, when I'm working with cotton, sometimes I'll go with a heavier thread on it, but I have this, so that's what I'm gonna use. And we're gonna demonstrate the applique stitch that I do on one side of it. And on a Bernina, there's a little hole here. This is a classroom machine, and it's the older style, but there's a little hole in that arm. And these are my favorite applique machines. I just love.
Drop it down.
Huh?
Drop it down. I can't
Okay.
see it too high.
Oh, I'm just about done threading it. If it'll go in. Oh. But you have to put the thread through that little hole. There we go. And it doesn't help when you have glue on your fingers. Can you see what I'm talking about? There's a little hole there.
Yeah.
And that just tightens the tension on the back. And you thread that through, okay? Okay, so now we're gonna take and rethread the top. And when I'm doing applique, I usually do a size 60 needle. I'm not going to switch it out for the demo. I very seldom do, but when I do applique that I'm going to do a big sample, I work with a size 60 needle. And it's a sharp. I use the Microtex sharp needles for my applique, and I will tell you that I go through lots of them on a project because you're working with fabric and you want to keep that needle sharp. And so it's very common for me to go through on a queen size quilt, depending on how much applique, but I'll go through 1 or 2 packages of needles on there. Now, sometimes I have a tendency to break them, but it's just because when I'm working, I have a tendency to pull. But the stitch really looks nice, and it leaves a little teeny hole so you don't see, the thread doesn't move in there. So I really like the Microtex sharps. Okay. So, we have our thread ready, and see, I just caught my finger. Hopefully it doesn't bleed all over it on one of my pins. Now you know why I don't like pins. We're going to wait. I think we're going to be okay. All right, so we want to bring the thread up. I've never done applique on a standing up, so this will be a new experience. And we're gonna pull the thread up to the top. Once I get it pulled up to the top, I'm going to wrap it around my finger 3 or 4 times and get a really tight tension on it. I want that thread to be I'm going to go to a little tiny zigzag stitch, and the length of my zigzag is going to be about 1.2. So we're going to take that down, and then actually I'm going to go to about, yeah, there we go. That's about, okay. And then on my zigzag, I'm going to actually go to about a 0.9 on the zigzag. Now that's always going to vary just a little bit depending on the type of fabrics you're working with. If I was working with a batik or like a cave, I would probably have that down more like a 0.8 on the zigzag part of it, all right? This is a thicker fabric, it's a cotton, and so I want it to be able to jump off and on. So I'm going to hold it pretty steady right here and get the first few stitches in there and kind of like a knot. All right, now I'm ready to go. And what I want is for that needle to jump off and on over that edge there. And this is looking really good stitch-wise, but look at it and see if you like the way it's looking. And it looks awesome. So we're just going to keep going with it. And we're going to get rid of those pins that I said I don't like. And right here at the end, I'm just going to hold it and do 3 or 4 stitches right on top of each other when I hit up to that black. So we have the first side done, and I don't have any black applique thread, so that's all I'm going to show you guys, but oh, it looks really, really nice. So I have to go find some black thread to finish it up. That's it, you guys. Wasn't that fun?
Yes.
I think so.
And actually, for those of you, even if you're watching and you didn't participate in the box, you can always just get this pattern and you can test it out. It's an awesome design for starting, especially if you want to try out that applique and try out those curves, because you're only paper piecing 2 blocks and you're also, you know, testing out or, you know, doing only 1 or 2 of the curves. so you can go slow. Oh, it looks really good. And it's so cute when you're done on top of that. So, yeah, and you can make 100 of these. You know, they're fun. And actually, you think that's crazy when they say the number 100, but we have one customer who her granddaughter was getting married, and they decided to make the tea time placemats, which is a very similar technique to this. It's just you don't have the background to put it on. And she made enough for every guest at their wedding one year. So,
well, we're not going to say she wasn't crazy either, so. But that's okay.
Ambitious. Mom.
Yeah, really?
That's the right word. So, thank you for joining us. And we are at another kind of standstill for a couple months because we're getting ready to put out the 2025 box. And if you haven't, if you want to join us, there's still plenty of time. So I'm switching back to me, even though the last picture of me was terrible. But there's still plenty of time to join us for the box club if you're interested. We have both the large box and the small boxes coming out, and you can choose either or both. So don't forget to use your coupons in your existing boxes. And anyway, we're really excited for the upcoming projects that we're putting together. And also, I'm so excited because it'll probably be late March before we get all of the quilts back finished and quilted, but I just think it's going to be really fun to be able to hold a stack of all of these projects complete and be able to show exactly what people are able to accomplish in 1 year in the Quiltworx Box Club. I'm really excited. So, and yes, I think shops give coupons in the boxes, hint, hint, and they do. And those coupons are incredibly valuable. Every quarter, if you were to use all of the coupons in your boxes, you'd probably have, I don't know, but you could have over $1,000 in savings on quilting supplies and kits and fabrics all over the market. So I'm really excited about this year and the projects we're doing. So box.quiltworx.com if you want to sign up. And if you have any questions, you can also join our Quiltworx Box Club group on Facebook, and we will let you know, and we will give you more information as the program starts to open up here. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Bye, everybody.